Despite my rebellious personality, that is not the reason for my rebellious statement today. I'm Bryony Paul, and for 13 years I've studied teacher development from every vantage point, from a nervous NQT to an aspiring curriculum leader to a curriculum leader with a job to improve the teachers that I had, and now a senior leader responsible for professional development. I have studied coaching in all of its varieties, and I wrote my master's dissertation on instructional coaching the year the ECF was launched. Joyce and Showers, Craft and Hogan, and Jim Knight were my reference points. Their research convinced me that tight feedback cycles can change practice, but translating that promise into daily school life proved really challenging. Why? Well, we lacked the capacity, the timetable elasticity, and most crucially, the trust. Teachers feared that coaching would morph into monitoring. And evidence backs their instinct. Schneider's work on relational trust shows that schools thrive when feedback is perceived as a partnership rather than surveillance. Chan and Moran calls trust the oxygen of collaboration. And Kraft and Pape find that teachers in supportive, trusting cultures improve twice as fast on value-added measures. So our first design principle became crystal clear. It needs to be built on support rather than surveillance. So we have been using live coaching. Live coaching takes the best of instructional coaching, but delivers it in the moment, whether it's prompting clarity in instruction or nipping off-task behaviour early. The feedback is actionable and immediate. This is especially powerful because it leverages what's happening in the room right now and allows teachers to see the effects of the change as it happens. It's not about being watched, it's about being supported. Live coaching isn't part of a one-off drop-in process. It's part of a coaching relationship built on psychological safety and the belief that every teacher, no matter their experience level, deserves support. We rehearse feedback moments with teachers in advance and then follow up with that scripting and deliberate practice so that the change sticks. It's this cycle, observe, coach, reflect and repeat, that drives real growth. Everything begins with a brief, low-stakes drop-in so that the coach can spot strengths and pinpoint one bite-sized area for improvement. We then contract. The meeting agrees the focus, the hand signals and the exact moment that the coach will step in if necessary and agreed. Then the live coaching session happens. The coach enters, gives the silent cue at the back of the classroom without students seeing, and the teacher can make tweaks in real time without feeling undermined. We recommend that the coaching debrief is as close to the end of the lesson as possible, ideally 2 minutes right after the bell, to reflect and lock in next steps. You can see example hand signals or mini whiteboard prompts that we use inside the lesson. EXP is referring to needing clear, explicit instructions to the class or to one student. A smiley face reminds the teacher to layer in positive praise. The sad face is a gentle nudge to issue a firm, stepped warning. Time and noise icon refers to the time limit and a noise level. And the raised hand icon is a reference to cold calling. There's only one sign, only one adjustment, and there is no overload. After the lesson, we conduct some deliberate practice using the green box on the right. We plan forward, so we slot when we're going to use this in another lesson. We script it, so we write the exact words or create the slides. We improve it, so we tighten and we phrase together. And then we rehearse it, so we run micro rehearsals using that technique until it feels like muscle memory. This 4-step rehearsal loop is lifted straight from Muller's cognitive load work, where it's talking about scripting first, polishing, and then practicing until fluent. But live coaching was a short-term fix. It didn't guarantee every teacher protected time to think, and it risked sliding back towards monitoring if we weren't vigilant. We needed a sustainable, trust-rich system. And enter the golden hour. It's one dedicated, timetabled hour of professional development for every teacher every week. Padlock on the icon matters. This time can't be hijacked for cover or for admin. We packaged those hours into a golden pledge, 12 3-week cycles per academic year, which coincides with our curriculum structure. The only caveat to keep autonomy aligned and balanced is that goals must sit inside one of our 3 whole school priorities. I could talk to you about research all day, but I won't. I will summarise for you, and I do apologise if I mispronounce any of the names. So first of all, we had Bryken Schneider in 2002. They gave us 10 years of data from Chicago, and it showed that when teachers, leaders, and families report high relational trust, that their students' reading and math scores rose significantly. The translation for us is, if the coaching feels like a partnership, the pupils' outcomes will improve. Then there's Kraft and Pape in 2014 that tracked 4,500 teachers over a decade. They found that staff working in a supportive professional environment with open doors, with collaborative norms, improved at twice the rate of peers in low trust schools. Therefore, it's culture, not charisma, that drives and sustains growth. We have Shannon Moran in 2014, whose work on organisational trust explains why. People only expose weaknesses or experiment with new methods when they believe that that criticism won't be weaponised. So our coaches ask, they don't judge, and they don't allocate ratings. Kirsch and colleagues in 2009 were looking at the science of implementation, and one factor that kept on reappearing was the voluntary engagement. They found that interventions stick when participants choose to take part. Hence, every golden hour is teacher selected and never imposed. Then we have Muller's growth sequence in 2018. That was the cognitive load research, and it shows that a single structured questioning routine helps teachers process feedback without overload. And we borrowed that scaffold for our coaching conversations. And then there's Cook and colleagues in 2021, which was an inclusive education study where co-teachers planned together and received feedback. It showed that specialist strategies were used more often in lessons. And that's why our model couples peer planning with that reflective follow-up and not just one-off advice. So you put those 6 different pieces of research together and you get the DNA for our golden hour. It's voluntary, trust-rich, question-led, and focused on shared improvement rather than surveillance. So how will we know that the golden hour is doing the job that we designed it to do? First, there'll be a culture shift. The open door icon is deliberate. We'd like classrooms to feel accessible, teachers to invite colleagues in, and feedback to become habitual. Second, rise in self-efficacy. John Hattie's meta-analysis ranks collective teacher efficacy as the single most powerful influence on pupil achievement, an effect size of 1.57, far above the hinge point of 0.40. At its core, collective efficacy is simply the shared belief among teachers that we can make a measurable difference, whatever the context. That group confidence is built on individual self-efficacy of each teacher, personal conviction that I can manage behaviour, explain clearly, and secure learning. Hattie argues that while many teachers in the same school raise their personal efficacy, those beliefs aggregate into collective efficacy, and that amplifies impact across classrooms. So when we say that we want self-efficacy up by 15%, we're not chasing a vanity metric. We're laying the psychological groundwork for the highest leverage variable in Hattie's entire database. It is important to remember that confidence precedes competence. We'll be using the teacher's sense of efficacy scale at the start and end of each cycle. Thirdly, pupil voice. The speech bubble ribbon means that students will notice the change. There'll be clearer explanations, calmer rooms, better learning conditions. If they can articulate the difference, then the practice is sticking. And then finally, alignment. Bullseye shows that every coaching goal hits one of our 3 whole school priorities. And so when every arrow lands in those rings, we know we're rowing together. So rebellion then isn't against research, it's against empty mandates. When we replace surveillance with relational trust, coaching shifts from a tick box exercise to an hour that teachers actively anticipate, and one that pupils feel through calmer rooms, clearer explanations, and better learning. Along with this presentation, I've shared with you our live coaching framework, our teacher coaching companion, and our sample staff survey. To summarise, our model sits on 3 evidence pillars. Trust beats surveillance. Bryken Schneider's tie relational trust to school gains, and Kraft and Pape show teachers in high trust cultures improve almost twice as fast. That coaching mechanics matter. Joyce and Shower's practice plus feedback cycle, then refined by Jim Knight and proven by Kraft's meta-analysis that drives pupil progress. And that implementation is everything. The EEF's Professional Development Guide and the CFIR framework keep rollout practical. Bottom line is that we want to build trust-rich, question-led coaching, and we don't want to leave growth to chance. So my questions and takeaways for you are to encourage you to consider what timetable tweaks could free up weekly coaching in your setting. What metrics beyond examination data can you track to evidence the impact of peer coaching? And can you share maybe one challenge that you can foresee when you're pairing staff, and how might we co-design a solution to that? Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.